Hi, I'm Holly from Mrs. G Gallery, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make this painting for WOW Travel Agency's second birthday. Alright. Before we get started, there are a few things that I do want to show you. The rundown very quickly. Alright, before we get started, the first thing you're going to need is your paint. There's a whole list on the party page. Make sure that you have those paint colors. We have our white, yellow, magenta, green, turquoise, blue, and brown. You should also have a water cup with your two paintbrushes in your water cup. And just to show you, you don't need the specific paintbrushes that I'm using. But if you want to go out and get these specific paintbrushes, that is completely up to you. But you just need a small, round little brush and a long, flat brush. And I'm going to be telling you exactly how, a couple tips and tricks to set up for your painting when we get to different parts of that painting. Always important, keep those paintbrushes when you're not using them inside of your water cup. Also handy to have a roll of paper towels nearby. Don't wear anything that is super meaningful to you, that you're attached to, because unless you wash out this paint right away, most likely it's going to stay in your clothes forever. So what we're going to be doing is step by step. I'm recording this so you have the option to pause it as frequently as you need to. If I'm going too quickly, you can just pause, take your moments, catch up. I am going to stop and tell you when I would usually take a paint break, but I am going to keep plugging through the painting just so that it's all in one video. Okay. First thing we're going to be doing, and I will reference back to the painting and show it to you all. We're going to take that large brush right here, and we're going to dip it into our yellow and the white, and we're going to start with Mickey's head. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because any imperfections on your painting, anything that you don't like, we can clean that up. And I'm just going to start with an upside down little U, make them a little bit thicker. Alright, you can always go bigger, but you can't always go smaller. This is our first step. We're just filling that in. Alright, you want to make sure that you're not going too far down. That's probably about halfway down. And like I said, we can clean all of this up. Now, this is your sun, so if you want more white in your sun, add more white into your painting. If you want it to be a little bit more yellow, add more yellow. Bring that up a little bit just so you can see that. It is pretty light. It's going to pop more once we have those background colors laid. So the first step is light, and I apologize for that. I know that's not the clearest to see. We're going to do that same thing. I've got yellow and I've got white. We call this double dipping on my brush. Both of them are there. Now we're going to map out our ears. And our ears are basically just going to be those ovals coming around. And again, we're going to be able to cover some of this up, so don't worry about it being absolutely perfect. Just start with your outline, go around. You can even go fully around if you want to make an oval. You can't really tell that that's there. And then just fill it in. Same thing on the other side. Take that yellow, take that white. You're going to go around make that oval. And then you can just fill it in a little more. Go back over any edges. And as of right now, we've got our little Mickey ears and head. Now this next step, I did do while the yellow and white are kind of wet, and I still have the colors on my paintbrush. We're painting a sunset, so if you've already got yellow and white on your brush, you can still go right into that hot magenta, and you are going to get like a really cool orange color. You can just go right around. Try to keep that line about where you had the line for the end of the Mickey. And again, anything we don't like, we'll clean up when we get to the water step. And you can just fill around your Mickey ears. But make sure, even if you go around, try to still keep that paint going one way. My students used to laugh at me. Once upon a time, they were into this band called One Direction. And I used to tell them, make sure you're like the band, you're painting in one direction. So pull that across. Same thing for the other side. Now you can see that ear is starting to pop. Don't worry about cleaning off your brush. I keep those colors right there. I am a painter who likes a lot of color on my brush at the same time. Don't even clean it yet. Don't bother. You can see these really pretty colors are all mixing, and you're getting some pretty peachy tones in there. And this is just our background. We still have to add details. So again, I picked up some magenta, I've got some yellow, and I'm continuing to go around my Mickey. And then just going back and pulling it all, making sure to hide those lines. We don't want those lines sticking out. Now I'm going to be moving my canvas around just to make sure that everybody can see everything that I'm doing clearly. And then you pull around the ears, then pull it across. Now if you're seeing that scratchiness and you're hearing that dry sound, that scratch, 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 grab more paint. The canvas is screaming for some paint. It's saying, I'm thirsty, feed me nice fresh paint. It wants that. Also, a step that you might like, you can add a little more white into that and lighten some of it up. If it's too dark for you, if you want a real light sunset, you can add those colors in. And just go right over that while it's still wet. So you can have that peachier color, that light pink down at the bottom, move into those peaches up at the top. And if you want to, this is a step that's totally up to you. You can add a tiny little pinch, just that tiniest little dab of blue. Again, didn't clean off that brush. You can add that blue up to the top. And then I take my magenta and I can go right over that. And that's going to make a pretty purple transition up at the top. And again, when I was teaching, I used to tell my girls, this is just like doing makeup. Blend, ladies. We blend. Blend, blend, blend. Alright. This is not 1997. We're not leaving those makeup rings around our faces. Blend, blend, blend. And if you don't like that, if that's too dark, you could either not worry about it, or now you can rinse off that brush. And then you can go right back in with some of that magenta and clean that right back up again. And if this is too dark up here, add just a dab of white. You don't want too much. And blend that in. Again, anything that's also too dark, we are going to be adding some clouds. So those clouds will be coming later. So we can add some of those pretty pink clouds up in there. Now, after we have this, and after you're satisfied with your ears, if you want to still clean up those edges, you can clean up the edges, make that look better. What you can do is go on your first little mini paint break. I'm just going to quickly make sure there's no more blue before I go back in and clean up my Mickey ears a little bit. I am looking at it on a screen, so it does kind of reflect backwards, kind of funny. I'm going to fix that up a little bit. If you fix Mickey, clean that brush. You do not want blue on your brush, because what happens when you mix blue and yellow, you get green. We don't want a green sun. No, thank you. So you can just go in and clean up. Don't worry too much about this. Like I said, we're going to be putting some clouds in. So if I mess that up and I want to touch that up later, we're going to add some clouds in later. And I can hide that so we don't even see that. And let me just even out my ears a little bit. Okay. And some of it's going to be hidden also with some palm trees. So we're going to have palm trees and we're going to be having some clouds in here. Alright, so lots of different things happening. So if there's a part that you really don't like, guess what? We'll put a tree right in front of that later. Like I said, this is where I would do a dry break. So you can pause this at this time and come back and pick up right where you left off. I am actually going to just keep on going just to show you all what happens next. Alright, next we are taking that luscious, lovely teal color. And whatever teal you picked up will work fine. It's water. And we're double dipping with some of that blue. It's phthalo blue on my list, but any kind of darker blue is going to work fine. It's a tropical picture, so we don't want the water to look too dark. This is really just for back here. And this is where we get to clean up those lines a little bit. And at first, pick up a little bit and then add a little bit more in there. Now, to make a cleaner line across, I do turn my brush like this and just make that line straight across. I pick up a little bit more. I am going to cover up to here with that blue mixture. And then I'm going to kind of fill that right on in. Alright, now, the back, up top, near the sun, that can be our darkest blue. From that, we really don't want to stay that dark. We're going to lighten it up a little. So I'm grabbing less of that dark blue color and more of the teal. I'm going to go maybe 2 inches down on my canvas. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white. And this is where that really pretty tropical color comes from. I'm just going to fill all of this in with those beautiful colors. And keep picking up that teal with that white. Double dipping. Bring it down, go back to more white. Blend, blend, blend. Now I'm going to stop with probably about 2 inches at the bottom because this is going to be our sand down here. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of swoop it. And this is your tropical beach. This is your tropical ocean coming up on your waves. There's no wrong way to do this. So I'm going to start with my teal. And I'm just going to kind of make this curvy little line right here. It's going to swing back out. We want to try to make sure you don't cross that line. This is all going to be our sand. And I'm going to pick it up. And we're going to fill that right back in. And blend, blend, blend. Also, I should mention, I am not painting my sides. I reuse my canvases from my paint parties. So I prime them again and then I reuse them later. You should wrap your colors around the edges. That way you don't have to get a frame. You can put it right up on your wall. And if you haven't done that yet, don't worry about it. You can always go back and add that later. You can even pick one color and just go around the edge. Black works nicely for that. I'm not using any black in this painting, but that's okay. You can pick whichever color or all the colors if you want to go back around and kind of fill all of that in. Alright, so far this is what it looks like. And it does not yet, obviously, look like our painting, but that's fine. We are getting there. This is just the beginning. Okay, next I'm going to clean off my brush again. And I'm going to go in for brown next. So I'm going to go right here for my brown color. And I'm also going to, but not just yet, we're going to be using our yellow and our white for this next step as well. So we're just going to take that brown at first, and we're just going to follow along that line that we made. So if there's any mistakes, we're going to clean it up with this brown. I'm still using the large brush. I haven't switched out my brushes. The small round is really a detail brush. Okay, so there's my dark brown right there. And then I'm going to take my yellow, did not clean off my brush, and I'm going to blend some of that yellow right out. You don't want to totally erase that darker line, because when we add a pop of white for the waves that are hitting, that is going to create like a shadow in the sand underneath, and it really looks cool. So try not to cover too much of that up. Just kind of get real close up next to it with that yellow and fill all of that in. Now once you have about that much, all the rest of this, you're going to add in a little bit of white with it. You're going to get this really cool beachy sand color. All of that blending. Not cleaning off that brush. I like to use a lot of colors on my brush. Now, this is definitely, if you kept on plugging through with me, this is definitely where you want to take a paint break. Alright, little dry break. Make sure you put your brush in your water cup, make sure you're cleaning them off. This paint does dry pretty quickly, so you only need a couple of minutes, maybe like 5 to 10, depending on how much you've really layered all of those colors on. Now the next thing I'm going to do is actually add some of those details in the water. My painting is not completely dry, but that's okay, because as you can see from the original, there are a lot of colors that are mixed in there. So we've got some pinks, we've got some yellows. We're not going to touch that white just yet. That's a final step, so don't do any of that white. Don't get ahead of me. I always have somebody who's getting ahead of me, and I'm like, wait. But we're going to be using that pink and that yellow that we used up at the top, that hot magenta, and we're going to kind of blend it in. And for this, again, I like to take my paintbrush like a minus sign. Keep it this way when you're painting. Don't turn them this way and make them real thick. We don't want thick lines for this. It's going to be thin little wispy lines. And you're just going to kind of practice that motion a couple of times. Just I like to make funny sounds because I feel like sometimes that does help. So I'm going to go in for my magenta. I'm just dabbing a tiny bit off just because I don't want too much of this on here. And you're just going to kind of go in side to side and just float those colors around in the water. Our waves are reflecting those colors. And that magenta mixed in with that teal, you're still going to have that fun purple color. If it's too dark, pick up some of that. You can pick up a little bit of that white and kind of mix it in with that pink. Make it a little bit lighter. This is just lightening that pink. We're not painting those waves yet. Not just yet. And it's really up to you how far down you want those colors to kind of travel. And that's just the pink. Then I'm going to clean off my brush. Really want to clean it. And get some yellow. Now for the yellow, it's in the water, and it's okay for there to be some green because you still see a little bit of green, like in that teal. And you're just going to add that yellow in, same way you were adding in the pinks. You can even blend them right on top of one another. This is your sunset. And you're just going back and forth. Now I'm kind of staying centered because it follows where the sun is and it kind of trickles out that way, but also we're going to have two palm trees coming up, so you're not going to see too much also going on out here. So you want to kind of keep that centered in the middle. And just pick up those colors and just keep going back and forth. If you think you have too much going on in the middle and you don't want that much yellow anymore, you don't like that much pink in there, then we can go right back in. I'm just going to add a little bit of more yellow to mine. So if you start to think it looks like too much is kind of blobbed into one area, clean off your brush. And go back for your teal. And you can add your white to your teal. I like to tap it together just to get it kind of together on the brush. And then while that's still wet, just go in and clean up some of those colors. Just go right over it, blend it out a little bit. It looks like, whoa, I've got so much pink right there. I don't want that there anymore. Go in for that blue, and then you can see when you start to kind of like that, it looks like there's some waves happening, and now you've spread out all that color so it doesn't kind of look too bunched up. You've broken it up a little bit and it looks a little more realistic, which is what we're going for. So now we have all those beautiful colors. If you want more pink in there, you can add more pink. If you want more yellow, if you like yellow, you can do that. If you really don't want too much of any of that, you're more than welcome to keep it blue. This is your painting. This is going in your home or your vacation house, anywhere that you're going to take this. If you're going to give this to someone, you know, think about what they might like if you're giving this away as a little present. And I still have blue on that brush, and I'm still kind of just playing with it, pulling it out, messing around with those colors. I do want a little more pink to kind of travel down here a little more, so I'm going to go back and pick up a little bit more of that pink. But I want it to be a little bit lighter, so I'm actually going to blend it a little bit with my white. Just get a little bit more of like a pink. And I'm going to put a few more little strokes down here. Not too much. Just want a few more. And then again, if you want to blend that, get that teal with that white. I just wanted to make sure that was the color I was looking for. And go right over that and cover it up a little bit. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is move back up to the top. Here is where we are going to go in with our fun little round brush. Just want everybody to be able to see that little round brush. I just cleaned it, pulled it a little bit. Now with the clouds, there are a couple of fun ways that we can mess with these clouds. First thing we're going to do is take that magenta, mix it with just a little bit of that white, and make that really pretty pink color right there in the middle. So some magenta, some white, and then to kind of press it and twirl. Make sure there's not too much on there. Or you can wipe it, it's up to you. Alright, we have some on our brush. Now, do not overthink this. You're adding in your clouds. Put them where you want to. Maybe you messed something up. I'm not actually particularly fond of this section of my painting, so guess what? Here they go. They're just some clouds. And if that is not light enough, if you can't see, literally pick up that white and do it again. Right over it. And I'm just making like little circular motions. They're puffy little clouds. And they can blend out into your sunset because these clouds are picking up the colors from the sun as they're kind of traveling through. So they're nice, fun, hot, pink little puffy clouds. You can make them a little bit bigger, try them out. And just kind of dabbing, just dab it up. Alright, and then you can just continue to add them anywhere up in the top that you feel like, hey, there needs to be a cloud there. Don't cover up too much of your Mickey ears though, because you do want whoever is going to see this painting to recognize, oh, that's Mickey. So if you covered up this little corner over here, I wouldn't cover too much of this corner over here. You want to kind of still be able to tell these are Mickey ears. But I don't particularly like this little spot. So we're going to say goodbye to the little cloud. You can pull some of that cloud directly into Mickey. I'm going to do a little bit more of that over here. And again, don't think too much about these clouds because even some of them will be covered up when we start to add those palm trees in. And when we add the palm trees, everything has to be dry. I'm going to make longer clouds. Some shoulder little puffs. I'm going into some of the ears a little bit. Leaving that alone right there. And then I'm going to put a little more right here. It's really up to you anywhere that you want these fun little clouds. I really like when it starts to get up to the darker areas because then those little clouds really start to pop. Let's see if I put him over here. I'm going to kind of try to come in a little bit closer, just so you guys can kind of see what that looks like a little bit closer. So it's just like making really quick little circles. And when I teach these paint parties in person, I actually tell people, try it on your paint tray real quick. Just try to get that little circular motion down. I usually have a tablecloth on the table. Paint it right on the table. Practice it. You're allowed to. Go for it. It's just little tiny circles, then I just kind of go back and make sure that everything's blended. We don't have any little see-through little pockets. And we just fill it on in. Alright, I am going to cover over here a little bit, not too much. And you'll still be able to tell that my Mickey's so fine over here. Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. You want to know he's Mickey. I always found that sound, that to be so soothing. I still watch Bob Ross. That brush on that canvas when he paints is just one of the most relaxing sounds. Just a couple more, and don't overkill on the clouds either. And this is your painting. You can add as many or as little as of the clouds. Maybe you don't want any clouds. You want to fast forward this step. Totally up to you. And if you paint it and you decide, meh, I don't like those clouds at all, I want them out of my painting, go back and watch those steps on how to repaint this and wipe them out. Repaint your Mickey, go back, repaint all of the sky, take them out if you don't want them. It's totally up to you. That's what I like about doing these paint parties too. I like seeing how different all of these turn out at the end. So if you do watch this, I am going to talk about this at the end, but if you do my paint party, I would really like for you to share them on my page. And I will talk about my page when we are all finished. I think I got like a little spot right here. I'm going to add a little guy. And again, it doesn't look exactly like the original, but it doesn't have to. They all turn out different, and that's the fun of this. You're not going to get something that's an exact replica because you're not me. You're painting for you. And that's what's so cool about it. I think I'm pretty satisfied with the amount of clouds I've got going on. I don't want to do too many because, like I said, some of this is still going to get covered with some palm trees, so you're not going to see that. So make sure my camera is back straight. There we go. All right. Now, while we're done with the clouds, down the bottom, back in the water, that area should pretty much be dry. And you can kind of tell if you lift it and it's still kind of literally wet looking, then you need to give it another couple of minutes. But for the most part, it should be pretty dry. And we can go into adding some of those details in the water. Now here is a super, super fun trick. Alright, we're going to work on some of those waves that we see down in the bottom of my picture. We've got our waves going on right here. And there is a very cool trick to do those waves. Before we get into doing the actual waves, we're going to add a little bit of a highlight around down the bottom. If you see that your brown is too wet, still give that a minute to dry. But if it's good and you're ready to go, just pick up the white and you are just going to literally trace that, because that's going to be our wave. Minus sign again, like that. You're just going to trace right over the edge of that blue, and that brown underneath is going to pop. Just like that. The next thing you're going to do is take that white And we're going to add in a couple of waves. And the way that we do this, and I'm going to start with this little lip right here. I'm going to pull a line out that goes like that. Then I'm going to dab off my brush. Nothing on it. Okay? And I'm going to just sweep. That's your wave. Now this part's a little too dark. I want to kind of make sure that blends in a little. So I'm just going to pull him out like that. And that is how you make waves. I figured this trick out literally from watching Bob Ross. And not as a young artist. I'm talking quarantined and recent. I have a personal painting that I'm making of my husband on a beach, and he's fishing, and I wanted to figure out waves because I was never actually taught how to paint waves. So I started watching him, pull, 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 pull. That's it. Wave. And my jaw, I think, hit the floor when I watched him, and I'm like, it can't really be that easy, right? Sure enough, tried it out, and I'm like, so I'm sharing that awesome trick with you guys. So we're going to try it the other way. You can make a line up, bring that line down, wipe it, pull the opposite direction, pull towards this way, pull. Okay? And then you're just going to kind of do this all over the place. If you want to, you can lay in where you want those waves first. Because that paint is not going to dry that fast. And then you can wipe off your brush. Just play with the direction that you want those little waves to go. And that is it on the waves. And you can add, again, as many of those waves as you want to. I kind of still like to keep them in the middle more because, once again, outside we're going to have those trees. I keep saying that, I know, but just to make sure we all understand that that's what's coming. Okay. You guys can go, give that a minute to dry. You don't want to do too much with this. You want to make sure those clouds are dry. You want to make sure down here is dry. Like, you can still see that white right there is still very wet and gloppy. If you have any patches like that, you can just wipe that out because that's going to take a long time to dry. And also, I'm noticing, and your water line doesn't have to be perfectly across because when we're looking at water, it isn't perfectly straight. Water is always moving. So I am just going to quickly, I have a little line that I want to clean up. Actually, I'm going to hold off because I might cover that with a tree. So I'm not even going to worry about that. I don't like that little bump right there, but I'm going to leave it because I might cover it. Okay, next up are those palm trees. Just want to give my painting a quick little look. Okay. So the palm trees. Let's lift you up a little more. Because this is going to take up a very large chunk of your painting. You want to make sure, I want to make sure that you can see what's happening. So with my palm tree, you're going to turn your large brush this way. Okay, so here's the large brush. This is not an illusion. I did not change out brushes. Turn it that way. And we're going to start at the top and bring it down. So we're going to start all the way up at the top, whatever point you pick in your sun. I'm not going to cover too much, so I'm going to probably go to about there, and I'm going to bring it down to the sand. And we're taking our brown for right now. We are going to mix another color into it, but just the brown for right now. So I'm going to start up at the top, and again, I'm just going to curve it down. And I'm going to go right about here. And curve it to there. Now, all of a sudden I've got document lines showing up, so that's fine. Alright, we're going to take that brown again, back up the top. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring that right on down. And then we're going to take our brown, a little bit of that yellow, and we're going to fill it in. Now if you want to, if you feel like you might mess this up, I always like to kind of keep it from the top and just keep pulling down, just keep repeating that line. If you feel like you need the smaller brush to fill it in, go for that. It's totally up to you. And you want to make sure that any spots where you kind of see any lines from the background, filling that in. Make sure to fill those in. Also, take a little bit of white and go through just the inside, adding a little bit of shadow just on the inside. And don't worry so much about the bottom, because there is something that we're going to do down here to the bottom. And if it looks kind of rough like that, ignore it, it's fine, because we're going to add something to make it look really cool. If you want to make your tree a little bit thicker, if you think your tree is too skinny, go back up to that top, bring it down, thicken it up a little bit. Add some of that yellow back in. Pick up some of that brown, make sure you fill it in. Just like that. Alright, then we're going to do that same exact thing. And I did mess up this little corner over here on my own. I didn't like that. It's covered with a tree now, so you can't really even tell. gold. I'm going to do that same thing over to the other side. See if you can get it kind of at the same point. Pull it down. I'm just looking at mine. I'm kind of going, I think I'm going to put mine a little more outside. That one is a little bit thicker, but that's alright. Because he is going to be just about that thick. Add in some yellow and some white in the inner half. Now down at the bottom, we're going to do something very similar to those waves. I'm going to take some brown with some yellow, more brown than yellow, and we're just going to kind of make a little hill. And that is going to cover anything that we don't like. Make that little hill right there. Now our palm trees are chilling. They have a little home right there on the beach. And then back to that sand color. We had that brown. And some of that yellow. Go right up against that and blend that right on in. Add a little bit of white down at the bottom. And blend all of that together. Now you've got your little hill where your little palm trees live. Now I'm going to leave my big paintbrush in the bucket, and I'm going to take out my little paintbrush. And while my palm trees are still wet, I'm going to add a little bit of detail into them. So I'm just going to take a little bit of brown on my small detail brush. I'm going to go in on the palm tree and just kind of make little marks. Just little brown marks, and then just drag it down a little bit. That's just going to add a little bit of detail so that people know that that's a palm tree. And that's why we added in that yellow, and why we added in a little bit of the white. And my guys are a little too dark still. I want you guys to be able to see this. So I'm going to go in with a little more white. And I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit more. It's still wet. It'll still blend. Just because I want you guys to make sure you can see those details. Alright, so now they're a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go back in with my small brush. Add those little details. It should be easier to see, and you can stick them to just a couple little marks and pull it down randomly. It's like a squiggle, and then pull the line down. Squiggle, go back, pull some of that line down, and stick that anywhere that you can, or that you want to. It's like every inch and a half maybe up would be good to measure. Doesn't have to be perfect. Squiggle, pull that line down. And I'm not going to go too close to the top because up there we're going to cover some of this with the top of the palm tree. So you don't need too much up there either. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Squiggle, pull the line down. Now here's a little trick to help you balance. I put my pinky where something is dry, my sun is dry, just so that I am not putting my hand on the actual painting. And I just put those marks in here and then lift. So that helps me kind of, like, I used to do stage crew. So with my stage crew girls, I would put a line, like a straight line I would have to do, and I would put my pinky there on the wall to kind of help me trace a straight line down. That was my little trick, and I did teach those girls a little trick. Okay, we only have a couple more steps, and that's almost the total painting. It's coming out pretty cool so far. So as we can see, our trees are almost done. We just have to add the tops, and then our cool little sign, and a couple little fluffs of some grass, some beach grass. Alright, now the palm trees. They seem tricky. They are not really all that complicated. I did use the small when I made this. So I'm going to stick with my small round. Now what you can do is take it and kind of pinch it a little bit. My hands are always a mess when I paint. It is what it is. It gets that way. So pull it like that. And we're going to go in for our green. And we're going to make 5 curvy lines starting from this point. So we're going to make 1, and try not to press too hard because we don't want this to be like, here, let me explain this. You don't want like a really thick blobby line. You kind of want to pull lightly. So that's 1, and then you can change the direction. 2, pull another one. 3, 4, and 5. Just like that. Then what you're going to do is pick up the yellow and the green together, and you're going to work with both of these colors together, and we're going to work down each side of our palm tree. I apologize for those lines. I have absolutely no idea how to get rid of them. Okay, so we are going to do a little swoop, and it's going to change. So for this one, we're swooping this way. You're just pulling that line out. Swoop, 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 straight down. Pick up that yellow, pick up that green, go back to the other side of that line, and now curve downwards in that swooping motion. And now you have your first palm. We're going to go back to this one. Same thing, green and yellow. Now we're going to swoop this way. Swooping down. Back to the top. And we're swooping this way. Okay? And you can make them as fluffy as you want. If you don't think this is thick enough, go back over it and make it a little bit bigger. If you really want those big old wispy palm trees up there, this looks a little too thin for you. Get in there and add a little more. You can always add some more. It's not quite as easy taking away. There we go. I like that one. Okay. Then you're going to just keep traveling around that circle. This guy's going to swoop this way. Swoop, 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 swoop. He might overlap that. That's perfectly fine. And then we're going to go back and swoop this way. Swooping down. I'm going to make him a little bit thicker. There we go. Alright, we're going to keep on moving around our palm tree. This guy's going to swoop out this way. It's just lines. Swoop, swoop, swoop. And do the same thing. And you can see some of that top, we covered it up. So if you weren't too thrilled with how that was looking, it's gone. So don't even worry about it. You can cover lots and lots of mistakes. This one's going to swoop this way. Alright, that's one. We have to do the other. So we're going to try over here to this guy. Starting it the same exact way. We're going to start with that 5 lines. Now if you've got too much paint on there, just brush it off. Get a little bit of that off, the excess. We don't need it. And make those lines again. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Okay. And then I'm going to work the same way, filling that in with that green and that yellow. And don't worry if they overlap. Those trees, like palm trees that are blowing in the wind, those branches are going to overlap one another. keep moving around. Now, I didn't like how thick this top turned out, but now you can't even see it. It's gone, so I don't gotta worry about it. Sweeping that around. Moving along to this guy. Okay. And that is what our beautiful little palm trees are going to look like. Now back down to the bottom. We're going to leave those guys alone. We're all done with them. Down here, there is a little sign. And there's also some grass. I'm going to start with the grass. I'm going to keep that small brush. And the grass is so easy. All we have to do, once you've got those palm trees down, the grass is going to be a breeze. All you have to do is pick up a little bit of yellow and a little bit of the green. And you're just going to swoop out. So we're just going to go like that. Just 1, 2, 3. Just swoop. Anywhere you can cover as much of this with the grass that you want. I'm going to make it go all the way across so that we cover up some of this over here that I don't really care for. And if you really pick up that yellow, it really makes this nice lime green color. It's very nice. I enjoy that. And then for the other side, I'm going to do the same thing, but you're going to curve it the other way. So this guy went this way. We're going to curve this guy inwards that way. And I'm not going to put it all the way across for this one. I'm going to put some in the front. Just a little bit here. And then I'm going to go to the back and cover some of that. Alright, so we covered him across, did a little bit in the front and the back over there. Totally up to you how much you want on the bottom of your palm trees. The very last step is going to be putting in our sign. And you want to kind of stick your sign where there's like a little bit more. So if this is too thin, you can move your sign over here a little bit more where there's a little bit more sand. If you've got a ton of sand, you can put your sign as big as you want. I'm just going to stick a little sign right over here. In my original painting, I had a lot of space on that side, so that's where I put it on that side. But again, it's however your painting ends up. Now I'm going to keep those colors on that small brush. I'm going to keep the green and the yellow, and I'm going to go in for just a little bit of the brown. And those colors together are going to make this really funky, like forest green. I'm going to put my sign right over here. And it's just a line. And then I just stick in that line by bringing it back down and filling it in. And I like this forest green color because it looks like an aged sign, like it's been sitting on that beach for a little while. I'm gonna add a little bit more brown into it. If you want to, you can add a little dab of white into it. Really doesn't have to be all that perfect. Sorry, that was turned. And we're going to do the same thing that we did to the trees, to the sign. Just going to stick them on a little hill. A little tiny hill. We're going to fill in that hill with that yellow and that white. So we're just going to fill it in. It's close to the edge for mine. Yours might be higher up, but I'm just going to fill it in a little bit, blend it. Now he's got his own hill. He's been here for a little while. Now we don't have to wait for this to dry to paint the brown because there's already brown in it, so we don't really worry about the colors mixing. We're going to take that small brush, we're going to make a line pretty close to the top. Just a diagonal line. Now what I did to get that paintbrush was, again, pinch it a little bit to make a super thin line, and don't press real hard on it, like loosen up on it. Another good trick is once you pick up the paint, swipe it against the plate. And then now you have a nice thin line. Now this first guy is going to cover a little bit of the bottom sign, and you can put your little piece of wood that someone stuck here, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And you can fill that all in with your brown. Okay. Then you're going to do the same exact thing for the one underneath. Now I'm going to pull it straight from behind here. So I'm going to pull this guy straight across, just like that. Darken that up slightly so you guys can see that. Straight across. Okay? He's peeking behind. Add your little pieces. Doesn't have to be perfect. Someone snapped this off and made some signs to show people where the fun places to go are. And you're going to fill that in. Now this absolutely, before you add any details to this, has to dry. So you want to make sure that you are giving this enough time to dry before you try to write on it. So that's going to take a minute. Even for me. I'm not going to be able to touch that. I'm going to have to let that go. So if there's anything else that you're looking at that you want to kind of go back and retouch, you can do that. So let's just say, like, I don't like this part over here. I can add a little more blue into that just to fix it up. If you are satisfied, don't touch it. There's a little saying in the painting world when we're doing any kind of paint party: friends don't let friends overpaint. So step away from the paintbrush, put it down, take a minute. Now you can, if you're following me and we're doing this, you can use a hairdryer to quicken that drying process, 100%. Maybe you want to add some more waves in. It's totally up to you. I think those waves are just the coolest thing. Let that dry. You could go back around and paint your edges. So any edges, I again don't paint mine because I reuse my canvas. Sometimes I take them with me to promote, and then once I'm done with it, you know, sometimes I give them to friends, but for the most part, I don't want to waste, so I prime right over it and then I would use it again. Just trying to blow on it a little bit, just to kind of get that to quicken. And the very last thing that you're going to do is add whatever you want on that sign. Now, once again, when you get your white or whatever color you want to use on the sign, I do recommend white. Pull it against, and that's not going to work because I have brown there. Pull it against your plate, but do that all over to really get that nice point to stick out. Okay, so dab it. You don't want that much of a glob because you're not going to be able to see anything. Just kind of pull it a little bit so that you have a nice clean point, and don't come up on it and cram it down onto your canvas. Lighten it up, and you're going to pick, where do you want this to be? What is your favorite place? Maybe it's Disney. Maybe you can't wait to get back there. Maybe there's a specific place in Disney that you cannot wait to get to. Personally, I love the Polynesian. So I'm just going to write out, and mine is not dry enough, but I just want to get it on here so you guys can see it. I've been lucky enough to stay at the Polynesian a few times in my life. So my parents used to have a quarter jar, and once the quarter jar was full, we would go to Disney, or we'd go on any trip really, but Disney happened a lot because there were 3 kids. So once the quarter jug was full, we'd go to Disney, and we did go camping. We did drive many, many times to Disney. We had a pop-up camper. It was like our favorite memories were going in the camper. I think we stayed maybe 3 times at the Polynesian, and it hooked me from a very young age. So I think the first time we went, friends of the family took my family, and I just absolutely fell in love with that place. And now my daughter, who is almost 2, she is in love with Moana, and we're hoping that maybe by 3 we'll be able to get her on her first Disney trip, and maybe she'll be able to stay there and meet Moana. But we will see. Another place that I absolutely fell in love with at Disney was Blizzard Beach. And that is a lot to write on this very tiny little sign. I don't honestly know how I did that in the beginning. Now, I'm going to pull it a little bit closer. Some of my sign can be cut off because it's behind the other sign. And it doesn't have to be totally perfect. So pick your places. Where do you want to go? Blizzard. I'm going to have to cram it a little bit closer. Beach. I've not been to Disney since 2002. The last time I was at Blizzard Beach was 2001. It was senior week in high school, so that's the last time I was there. And I love Blizzard Beach. It was so much fun. Maybe you like the Animal Kingdom. That's another really cool place, and I can't wait to get back to see all of the things that they have added. I'm sure it's impressive and crazy. Now, the very, very, very last thing that we always do, and I apologize for trying to get this thing a little bit straighter so you can see it all. The very last thing that you do, pick your color, any color that you want. I like a darker color because the sand down there is so light, so I'm going to go in for that fun dark blue that we used in the beginning. And you can just sign your name. If you happen to have a Sharpie, you can 100% use a Sharpie. But I'm going to use some of this blue that I've got. And this is my signature, HG. And I do like to add the year. That's up to you. HG 21. So that is our beautiful Mickey sunset painting. I really hope that you guys enjoyed following along. And if you would like to share, I would love to see them. I enjoy seeing all of the different art. I've taught so many different paint parties. Please tag me, Mrs. G Gallery on Instagram. I do have a Facebook page as well, but there I am. I don't want to spill it on my own painting, Mrs. G Gallery. So you can find me, tag me. I would absolutely love to see how your paintings turn out. I would love to hear all of those fun little things. And thanks so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Also, before I go, if you are interested in booking a paint party, I do have the equipment to set up Zoom so I can virtually teach a paint party. And if you happen to live in the Philadelphia or closely surrounding areas, I do have enough supplies for 40 guests, and I can travel with you. So if that's something you're interested in, find me, reach out, and talk to me. I would love to talk to you about booking any future parties. And like I said, this was created specially for WOW Travel Agency. I will not be reteaching this painting. This was specifically for them. I am going to have some YouTube videos coming. I might link this one to my YouTube. But I'm not going to reteach this. This was special for them. So if you have something that someone in your family is interested in, I could come up with a concept for you to be able to join me and have fun doing the paint party. But again, I really hope you guys had fun. Show me what your paintings look like, how they turned out. I'm so interested to see that. Have a great week.